Good morning everyone and welcome to the webinar. So AutoCAD for intermediate users will be going a bit more into depth compared to what we did on the previous one. So thank you very much for attending. What we're going to do, just a very quick introduction to Spatial. So Spatial been started in about the late 90s, 1996, and we provide you spatial engineering solutions for managing spatial data from survey through design, construction, data management and system integration. These are some of our customer base. So we've got offices Australia, the US and South Africa, and broadly our geospatial suite, Enlighten and ACDC. So Mansus is database driven GIS, edited in AutoCAD map or Civil 3D, and it's stored then in a single database, handling multi-users, off-the-shelf applications and data models, so based around OpenGIS or OGC compliant systems. Enlighten is then the web-based geospatial portal and business integration platform that you can read the data from your spatial database as well as all the other attribute databases within your organization, such as asset management, financial, etc., and exposing that information, plus a full integration interface. And then ACDC, or As Constructed Design Certification. The whole idea with ACDC is the validation and loading of data from the electronic submittals of as-builts directly into the GIS and your asset management systems. From Mansus perspective, so database-driven AutoCAD map, you've got all of the information, so all the base information. It's also an extensible data model, so you can go and add your own attributes, etc., as required in there with drop-down lookups that you can code lists, etc., that you can work with, and exposing all of the attributes. So a full-featured CAD-based database-driven GIS, so you can do large data sets in a spatial database in the back end with a full reporting functionality as well. If we look at on the Enlighten side, so that's the web-based geospatial platform where you can then look at all of the data with aerial photography, tracing, looking at the advanced forms with exposing data. Here's an example of a sewer trace. So what that would do is to say running a trace and say these are all the downstream parcels affected that you can then work with. You can also do a water trace. So the water trace will then tell you which valves do I need to close to isolate that part of the network. What you can also see there's a valve there, but you don't have to close that. So that is also going to be affected. So we do trace through the rest of the network to find if there's any water sources. So all of this is configurable to actually give you your full network trace capabilities. ACDC, and that is where you go to asconstructed.com. It's to automate the validation and loading of data. So one of the things is you typically get your as-built data, so the concept happens, the design happens, then you've got the ASCON. You typically get that traditionally in paper, but mostly in PDF, and those PDFs are prepared from a CAD-based system. Now, what we then do is you can actually take that AutoCAD, slightly modifying by using attributed blocks instead of just text on there, so that we can programmatically access that data. So basically, we look at what is your GIS data model. We embed that into your as-built templates, and people can then fill that in, submit that to the portal at asconstructed.com. It will do a validation for you so that by the time you receive the data, it's already pre-populated. What you can then also, from the person doing the data capture, it guides them on what's wrong, what they still need to fix. There's then a whole notification system, so it will then tell you at any stage of the process who needs to be notified, etc. And it is then populated directly into the GIS, and you can even take that data then into a digital twin. So this is an example of a custom set of data in a new development. So that's the roads data there, assigned on there. So we're going to be looking at some things around the AutoCAD environment, working with the drawing, some editing tools, etc., that we'll be working on. So We're going to go slightly intermediate. So basically, AutoCAD was introduced in 1982. This was your first CAD system for PC. There's a AutoCAD version 1.1 on a floppy disk, single-sided double density running on DOS. And so that was typically the interface that you had on those days. So before, it was all running on mini computers, very expensive stuff. Now, as a DOS-based system, everything ran off commands. So that was before Windows introduced menus. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is Windows version was first introduced in 1992, but CAD retained the command line, and the command line is still very important today. Now, pretty much no GIS system really has got a command line. So that's a very different thing. So your interaction, your feedback, all of that type of stuff, there's going to be quite a lot that's going to focus on the command line. So historical reason, they looked at could we remove the command line, and it is such a powerful tool in terms of how people interact with the system and to speed up their data capture process that you cannot remove the command line out of AutoCAD, and they've actually improved it a lot. A very simple thing into the interface. You had the old menu toolbar configuration, and you can still work with those. There's also the ribbon bar that you can work with. So a lot of people work in a combination with those. It just depends on your familiarity, what you want to work with. So yeah, here we've got then some toolbars. You've got the command line at the bottom there that we will interact with. And then you've got this bar at the bottom giving you some information. So what's the assigned coordinate system? Are you in model space, paper space, and then some of your AutoCAD settings. And we'll be looking at some of the areas there and how you can interact with it. So things like your AutoCAD settings, your snap modes, etc. Then you can easily get to some of the toolbars, and I'll show you loading some of those toolbars, etc. in a moment. So just basically then in terms of our user interface, now I'm running AutoCAD map here. So here we've got the toolbars. This is a task pane now, just anything where you work with any of these, you can easily dock them just by grabbing that. Now, one of the other things that you'll see here is this little sort of funny little icon. What that would do is it will actually collapse any of the pane, so the same type of thing there, so it reduces the amount of space, and then if you hover over it, that panel will pop out. I'm going to leave mine popped out in this case. The task pane I'm going to turn off. So here's then our command window. Now, one of the things with AutoCAD is you've got many ways to actually do the same thing, and that's a good thing. So here's on my command line. So here you can see is some history of the command line. If I then go over this spanner, so there's things, my input setting, autocomplete, autocorrect, search system variables, content, midstream search that you're working with. Then in here you've got a delay time. Now that delay time is to the help system. So if I hover over any tool, first off it will give me some basic information, so line, and then it will, after that, another delay, it will give you more detail. So if I go and look at this offset, so that's then create circles, parallel lines, and parallel curves based on that offset. And if you then need more help, you can go and hit F1 to get to all of that info. Line of prompt history, transparency, and I can then also get to my options. So there's our options. I'll get back to the options in a moment. Now, default, when you open your command window, that's the view that you'll see, and you only see one line. I'm going to drag it up a little bit, and what we'll see is there's more detail, and if there's any history happening, you can actually then see what is going on there. So I'm going to give it a little bit more space. So if I'm going to say, let's go and draw a line there, it tells you then what is the prompts. So that's the command that it's using, and it's giving you the prompts that all of that works. Now, I'm using AutoCAD Map here. So within Autodesk had started with AutoCAD, and then they worked with specialized tools on top of that. So if you wanted to do electrical or mechanical or plant, etc., they had tools, or they had different versions of the software sitting on top of AutoCAD. So a few years ago, they consolidated those, and it is now your AutoCAD with tool sets include all of those various tools. So you've got the architecture tool set, electrical, Map 3D. So the Map 3D is basically GIS within AutoCAD. And so it adds map projections, and you can talk to other databases through various technologies, including ArcGIS and raster images, web map services, shape files, all of those type of things that you can work with. The mechanical, MEP, plant. The other thing that is also worthwhile looking at is the raster design. So raster design is, if you've got any images, to handle that. It will also handle PDF. So if you have, for example, a PDF with tables in, raster design can actually go and read that table and output that to a spreadsheet for you. And so there's a whole heap of tools. We will do an AutoCAD map type of functionality webinar in the not too distant future. And so look out for that one, and we'll look at the Map 3D and some of the raster design tools that is within the software. So one of the things that AutoCAD is amazingly customizable, that you can work with in different ways. So here we've got what is a workspace, and now we'll see here I can go and pick a workspace. Then I've got this little gear icon that you'll see there that I can actually get to a variety of different workspaces. Now, one of the things that you'll see here is do not save changes to workspace, or automatically save changes to workspace. If you have it, by default, it will be on do not save. So if you change from workspace, one workspace to another workspace, it will open up different panels, etc. If you say automatically saved and you've dismissed certain toolbars or icons, or you've docked it in a specific location, it will remember that and it will bring you back to that view later on. So that's the workspace settings. Now I can get to the same type of thing here. So I can actually go and change my workspace from here, or I can change it from there. So if I go and look at my maintenance workspace, and now you'll see there it will actually go and open project and connect to data, things like that. But now that workspace panel is no longer visible, but I can still get to it from here. So if I now go to my planning and analysis workspace, now you've got a different set of tools that you can actually output and etc. that you can work with. Or I'll go back to my Map Classic workspace. One of the other things that I've mentioned here is your raster design. So that is then just a tool that gets added. So if you go and look at your Autodesk app, if you've got an AutoCAD subscription, it's all there, and you can just download and install that, and you can then work with. So you can mask and crop and vectorization tools, text recognition, snapping to raster, etc. So there's a whole set of tools that is available to you. So if you look at here at the bottom of the screen is what they call the hamburger, or the customization, so the 3 bars. So in here is a lot of different tools that you can make available. So do you want to see the coordinates as you move the screen? You'll see model, paper space, grid. So that is this grid. So do you want to put a grid on the screen, you can also snap to the grid. And here you can then do you want to turn on a grid snap, etc. So typically from a GIS perspective, you're not really going to use the grid a lot. So I'll turn on the grid and that grid snap mode. I turned off, so I'm not typically going to use that. Now, in Map 3D, there you'll actually also see what is the map projection that you've got assigned to this one. So you can then go and get all your map projection libraries, etc. That's not going to get into details on that. Here you then have ortho mode, polar tracking, etc. So that is quite useful. Now, if I'm going to draw something, so remember I drew this line. If I have polar tracking on, you can only go horizontal and vertical. So it will force you into the horizontal and vertical mode. So that's quite useful for drafting in engineering, that type of thing. Especially if you do cadastre, that can be quite useful. So if you go onto this one, so anything with a down arrow, if you drop down there, it will then give you the option to do, or you can go to the tracking settings. So this will open this drafting settings panel for you that you can actually get to a lot of these things. So do you want to turn it on? What is your increment angle? So that'll then do every 45 degrees. You can do every 30 degrees depending on what you're trying to do, etc. And it's the same that I can go then pick there. So if I've got, let's say, something drawn there, now if I have got that turned on, so if I do that, there it will then, you can snap to 45 degrees to 90 degrees to, so whatever the next set of 45 degrees, it will actually snap that for you, that you can work with. So that's just in terms of the drafting, how you can work with that. The next one that we see there, your snapping reference line, so you can go and have that on depending on what you're trying to do. So yeah, I'll come back to the snapping and so on in a moment. Now, one of the things that we had, if I go to my tracking section, now in there in the panel, one of the things that you'll see is there's options. So remember, I could go to my options from here. I can also right click in my command line and go to options, or I can just type in options. So there's a few things in here that I just want to cover. So in terms of your display, you can see there's quite a big set of information how you interact with the system. So do you want to use large buttons, your tooltips, how that work, display on your screen, so arc and circle smoothness, polyline curves, etc. So you can, depending on how complex data set you're working with, you can make that more or less complicated or more detailed. Now, if I'm working on there, you can actually go and specify the size of the crosshair that we are working with. Now, just one of the things coming from a GIS-based background, all of these aspects in your user interface you can customize. If you want to work with a white background, that's as easy as that. I can have a light mode or a dark mode that you can work with, so fairly simple to go and modify those aspects in my area. If I go to colors as well, I can go and also go to select color, and let's say go and pick gray, for example. Yeah, so you've got total control how you want to interact with the map. So there's some of your AutoCAD user interface. If you want to investigate some of these other tool sets that's included with your subscription, you can easily get to all of that. So, you know, the various basics thing. Now, there's many ways that you can actually work with it. One of the things we've mentioned was on the command line on the toolbar. Now, I can go and you can see there's my mouse cursor. So if I go and go to my options, so there's another way, just on the right click, I could get to my options. Remember there that crosshair size, so if I make that big and apply that and say okay, now you can see how big, so that's the length of that crosshair. That's quite a bit over the top, so I'll take that back to 5 that you can work with. Then is your auto snap marker size. You can also go and specify that information. So that's that bar in the middle. You can make that bigger and smaller Now, I can go and, for example, if I go and type anything, so what that will then do is it'll actually start from all the commands within AutoCAD, then give you possibilities. So if I just type in and I make a mistake, it will still go and filter based on that information to say, okay, what is the information that you may want to do? So you can easily then go and pick any particular tool that you want. Once again, there it will go and then give you some more help on that one. Anywhere on the screen when I start typing, that will actually work in there and your interface will actually work with it. So if I go onto the command line, there you'll see it'll actually give me my coordinates that we are working with, etc. And I can then go and start working with that information to type in coordinates, etc. So many ways you can get it. If I start there on the tools there, if I go say draw and line, so I can start it here and it gives you a little bit more detail. I can get it from the toolbar there, or I can just start it on the command line depending on what it is, and it will, all the tools are available there for you. So there's many ways how I can start any of these tools. Now, one of the things with AutoCAD is there's other basics. So you've got a line, then there's a lightweight polyline, and then we've got polygons, points, rectangles, circles, arcs, multi-line. So there's a variety of these different tools that you can write. Now, one of the things that AutoCAD does, it actually builds data types on top of each other. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. So here what I've got is a line. So if I select that, what it will do is to see this, you've got these vertices. I've got my properties pane on, so there it will give me some information on that. So there it will tell me there I've got a line. Now I can also go and say, let's go and draw, and I'm going to draw an arc. And there's many ways to draw an arc. I'll go and do a 3-point arc. I'll have my snap mode on there. So let's go and say I want to draw an arc from the second point, and there's a third point. All right, so now if I'm going to look at there, I've got an arc and I've got a line and I've got a line, but these are 3 entities. But what I can also do is if I go and say draw, and I can now go and draw a polyline, and there it will now prompt me in the command line, what's your start point? So I'll start at that point and I'll go and draw a line. So that's the same as the line, but now it prompts you for different things there. So I can go and say, all right, now let's go and draw an arc. So let's go and draw an arc there. And now let's go and go back to a line. So let's go and draw a line there. And okay, now here I've got polyline that I've drawn. If I now go and explode this, to say, let's go and explode that entity. There I've got a line and I've got an arc and I've got a line, which is the same as the 3 commands that I've done. So a polyline is a combination of simpler entities that we are working with. So I've now exploded that polyline. So I'm actually going to go back to that and say, undo that. Or for your entire session, it actually builds the history for you there. And so you can actually go and undo and redo and go forward and back within your session that we are working with. All right, so now I've got a polyline. Now, one of the options there is I can actually go and say, do you want to close that polyline? So that's an attribute that I've got here. And now I've closed this polyline. So just on this attribute, if programmatically, if I access this, it's a different type. So this is then a closed polyline. And this is how AutoCAD handles polygons. So I can easily open it and close it depending on what I want to do. So let's say if we look at, for example, roads, and I look at, you now have a polygon area, but now let's say the curves may come back on itself. And if you then programmatically going to handle it, The curve could then act as a polygon that you can go and fill, which is probably that you don't want. So that's the area that you have to look at, is are you actually going to snap it closed, or are you going to use the attribute whether it is closed or not, and it will be handled differently programmatically. Now, one of the things with standard AutoCAD is I can do a polygon, but now what if I've got a park area or a road, and so I've got a road and I've got a roundabout inside that particular road polygon? How do we handle that? Standard AutoCAD cannot do that, and so that is where AutoCAD Map then comes in. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that, but where I'm coming from, so here you then have lines and arcs to a polyline, but then we can also go and construct a multi-polygon, which is once again built on top of a polyline. So if I go to draw, and in here I can go and say, I want to go and draw a polygon. And how many sides do you want? So let's do 7 sides. Let's give it 7 sides, and that's the center, inscribed in circles. So there's a polygon that it wrote. So there I could see here I've got a polyline with the attribute closed. That is also a polyline with the attribute closed. So this drawing tool that I've got to draw a polygon gives us a closed polyline. If I go and do a rectangle, once again, that's a closed polyline that it is drawing for us. So it's actually drawing the same type of tools that I'm building on top of that. Circle is a different entity that you're working with. And then you've got splines and ellipses. Now, coming from a GIS and having to convert data and working in databases, etc., I'd recommend staying away from splines and ellipses, because as mathematical constructs, different systems have different ways of handling it and how it inscribes, so you may not get the results you expect moving data from one side to another. So it may look pretty on a map or on the paper, but then programmatically you may get unexpected results between different systems working on splines, etc. So we're just going to have a quick look at text styles that we are working with. So in there you can actually go, remember we started off with AutoCAD coming from the DOS days, so some of those original fonts, etc., still exist from the DOS days. You can go and specify your own TrueType fonts or use any of the TrueType fonts on the map that you could use. So you can go and set the effects, want it upside down or backwards or vertical, save your new style, set the current style. So part of a typical CAD setup for an organization is setting up all of these text styles to say these are the styles that we are going to use. So it's the text icon. So you can then go and set up all the command line parameters, and there's a whole heap of these things. So we'll go into what exactly does all of these BR and BC and etc. What does all of that mean? So single line or multi-line text that you're working with. So that is all to do with the justification. So when you are drawing something, where's the text going to be justified? So there's basic one, there's left, center, right. So that is left, center, right at the bottom of the normal bar. Align will align it to another entity. So that is just basically a line angle. So you can go and say on here, so if you want to rotate the text, that's what the line would do. Middle is right in the middle. It's middle, center, and middle would be the same type of thing that you've got there. Fit, you draw a box and it will fit within those entities. And then you've got top left, top center, top right, middle left, middle center, middle right, bottom left, bottom center, bottom right. So if you go and put text, let's say a P or a Q that goes underneath there, lowercase, then that would go to the bottom of the text there. So you've got all of these options how you can do your text justification. So that's what all of the terminology needs. Now, navigation tools. Now, typically navigation, so there's quite a lot of different tools that you can work with. The basics is going to be the normal zoom and pan. So if I use my scroll wheel, it will zoom in and out. Now, just depending on where you put your cursor, that's the place where that would zoom in and out of that you can work with. If you then hold the scroll wheel down, it will automatically go into pan mode. So practically, that's going to be the most useful part of it. Now, there is quite a few things. Once again, on the command line, if I just go and do Z, and what that will do is now put me in a zoom mode. Now, once again, I can go and do real-time zoom, or so all center dynamic extents. Now, the one that's been used the most would be extend. So what that will do is it will then look at what is all the drawing entities that I've got within my drawing, and it will zoom to that. Now, why is that useful? Let's say you've got something that is located somewhere, and inadvertently somebody has gone and say, let's go and draw a point, a single point, and I'm going to put that at 0 and comma 0. So now I've got something that's somewhere totally different. So if I now go to zoom extents, now it will tell me, okay, this area is where I've got stuff in my drawing. So that's then at the 0, 0, I've got that one point that I had where zoom extents will now take it back. So if you get unexpected results in drawings, that type of thing, zoom extents is your friend to actually get to where you may need to be. So there's a few more things in the pan, real-time point, left, right, all of that type of stuff that you can work with. Okay, AutoCAD blocks and grip editing that we're going to work with, and we'll also look a little bit at the layers that we will work with. So in terms of the layer manager, is slightly different to what you would have within a GIS-based environment. So you'll get the layer command, you'll get some certain options there. So this is then your layer manager. If I go back there, here's a few things that I've got. Let's go in my planning and analysis workspace that I've got now. So if I then have, so here's, for example, another one where I've got my state. So here, if I look at this icon, there's my layer properties. I'm going to turn this one off as well. And this will then take you to your layer panel. Now, in this particular one, you'll see I've got a whole heap of different layers with different colors, different stylizations, etc. How does all of that work? So there's some nifty tools in here now to manage that. What I just want to go back to first off here is to say, okay, what does all of this mean? So there I've got my layer status. So there's a few things there. This is the current layer. What does the current layer mean? If I go down here, there you can see that is my current layer, which then say if it is there, there's my drawing tool. So if I go and draw something, that's the layer that it is going to work on. So that is that specific layer. If I now go and say, let's go and make that my current layer, it will change that. Let's make it on a different one. So if I now go and draw that, it is now going there on the different color, etc. So that's the status. Layers with objects will be colored in like that, and layers with no objects would be blank like this. This layer contains offset objects, and there's a property override in a layout viewport. So that gives you the differentiation if you're going to plot something. So that just say, are you going to plot that or not? Layer name, so you can have quite a lot of different layer names in there, so you can filter it and sort and so on. That you can do that, so you can also change the column order there. Now on-off control, so here you can see there's an on-off and a freeze and a lock. What does all of that mean? So that turns a layer on and off. When a layer is on, it's visible and available for plotting. When it's off, it's invisible and not plotted. So in here is to say, I want to plot that, or that is visible for plotting. Turning a layer off won't plot that. The next thing is freeze. So that is then freezing the selected layers. And if you've got a lot of different things, freeze will reduce your regeneration time, etc. It's not displayed, plotted, or regenerated. So what does regenerate mean? Because this is all memory based. If I look at something, regenerate will actually refresh the screen. So if I go and I've got a big area and I zoom in, at some stage it's going to stop redrawing, and regen will just refresh the screen. So it doesn't change anything on the data itself, it just refreshes the screen display that we're working with. So that's what that gen means. Locking will still display the data. It will just be, you can't modify anything on that. You can still snap on it, but it will appear faded, and there's a small lock icon that will be displayed on there. So you can still see it, you can still snap to it, but you can't modify any entity on the lock layer. As then plot control, color, line types, etc. So yeah, you can actually get index color, true color, or color books. We've covered some of that in the previous one. Your line type and line weights that you can work with. On the layer control that I'll go back to, if I've got a lot of different layers, so what I can do is you can actually go and set up these layer filter. So you can have a property filter, so everything that's of the same type you can go and do. But now you can also go and apply group filter. So let's do that, and I'll create. So here's all layers. So what I'm going to do, all these layers that start with B, I'm going to select that, and I'm going to dump it into that group. Everything that starts with D, I'm going to select that, dump that into that group. So now what I can do is I can easily go to any of these groups, and I can go and say, all right, let's select all of those, turn all of that off, and let's go back to all my layers, and I can go and get to that. So there are the layers then turned on and off. So you can easily get to any of these subgroups of layers, turn them on, etc. that you may want to work with. How does selection work in your AutoCAD environment? So that's also typically very different to how a GIS would work. So if I go and work, if we look at this, normally what people first off start to do is you start and then you hold your mouse down. So what that would do is give you a sort of a free form selection, which is what most people, it's a bit of a, can give you a funny result. The normal way to select something is you can click on something and it will then select information in there. Now, if I click on that one and that one and that one, it every time selects a new entity. The reason for that is, let me go to my options. One of those things there in my selection, by default, AutoCAD will have noun, verb, and object grouping. So what that would do is, if I select something and I click on something else, it will automatically add to the selection. So that's the default way that AutoCAD works. But then here in my properties, I've got, so it's building up that selection set. So the way, if I then want to select something new, then I've got to have a different. So typically one of the first things that I always do is I go with a new install, go in there and use shift to add to a selection. So then I can select something and it will then give me that new, and the shift will then, if I want to add something onto the selection, holding down shift will give that to you. The next thing then there would be is if I do a single click and let the mouse go and then start selecting. Now what you can see there, it will actually show me this is what it's going to select. So I started at the top left and drag it down. And so what it will do is the entity has to be completely inside to be selected. So that's with that blue fill. If I start here, bottom right, and go up, it now gives me a green selection. So that will give me crossing. So it will then, everything that it crosses will select in there. So that's just a very easy way of differentiating. The same thing with, if you hold it down, if you go clockwise, it will give you the blue completely within. If I hold it down and I go anti-clockwise, it will go green and go crossing selection that you work with. So window selection, just there, completely within crossing window with that. You can also do a window polygon. Also, one of the things that within the AutoCAD environment, if I go and do, I've got nothing selected at the moment. I'm just going to go back to my other workspace where I've got my icons and all of those type of things, so quite easy to get back to that. If I want to modify something, if I've got nothing selected, it will automatically put you in select mode. Now I can go and just put in question mark, and that will then give you option to say these all the possibilities and selections. I can go in the window, last crossing, box, or etc. and put that in. That will now place you in selection mode, and you can then go and select individual entities, or I can go and do a window polygon, and that you can then go and draw a polygon to go and do your selection, working with that. Or if I've got something selected at the moment and I then go to the command, it will automatically use that command that you've got. So I can then say, okay, let's go and mirror that. And there's now my mirrored entity that it created. A fence, so that's basically everything that it goes through. It will select that to you. The freehand selection we've gone through. To remove objects from the selection set is R, so you've got to then, or hold and shift for a selection. So if you've got the current selection, the shift will remove it from the selection then again. All right, symbology. So AutoCAD block is a group of objects that act as a single 2D or 3D object. A block is actually a small little drawing on it. Normally in a GIS, what you would have, it will use a font or some set of symbol, a picture or something that you can use for symbology. AutoCAD is basically a small little drawing with the same symbology that you can reuse within your drawing. So a block is a single entity, it can be moved, copied, rotated, etc. And if you've got repeated content, such as drawing symbols, which are reusable and save time. So yeah, it's quite a few interesting things happening working with blocks. So if you redefine a block, it will automatically update all the other similar blocks in the drawing to say, so you change one symbol, all of them can be updated. What we can also do is use attributes to a block to store different information per block. So the block view will all be the same, the way that the block look, but all the attributes on the individual blocks will be different. So you can assign default values, etc. So attributed blocks. So remember we talked about ACDC, or as constructed design certification. So instead of using text, we're using attributes in the blocks that you can then work with the data. So a block creates a block from separate entities within the drawing. W block creates a block and writes that to an external file. So that's also part of your AutoCAD environment. Then typically is to say, here's our standard set of blocks, symbology that we are going to use. Insert will insert the block into the drawing, and explode will break it into its separate components. So remember the whole thing about lines and polylines building on top of each other. The block is exactly the same type of thing that it is then building on top of the entity. So in the AutoCAD block, I can go and create a block, and you must give it a name, a base point, and then the objects to insert on that block. So if I go and say, I want to go and create a block, it will ask me to give it a name. I'm not going to create a new one now. What I can also do is to say block edit. So it will then say, here's all the blocks inside the drawing. So what I'm going to do in here is to say, I've got a drainage pit definition in here. And what that is, then I've got a circle. I've got a piece of text, and what I also have is I've got a point. Now, the reason why we've got a point there in the middle, that's where we're going to actually have our insertion point, that when we programmatically access the data, we make sure that that midpoint is programmatically accessible. And typically, the center point of your block is you're going to draw that at 0, 0. So if you look at the coordinates here, that's then that point is at 0, 0 that you're going to work with. The next thing that we then have is these block attributes. So in this case, you can then just go insert all of your various block attributes that you can go and insert. So there's parameters, so there's visibility, base point, then there's lookups and flip. So there's all sorts of different things that you can do. You can do a full 3-hour thing just on blocks. So I'm not going to go too much detail on that, but yeah, so here you can actually go and want to go and define an attribute. And then in the attribute is, do you want it to be display or printed? So that on the map, you can see here, I've got a whole heap of different attributes, but you can then determine which ones do you want to display on the map. Do you want a default value for it? Do you want to have a prompt for it? What's going to display? Now there you can actually also get to all of these fields. So if you want to do your object or all sorts of different things that you can actually use within these values. So that would then create a block. I'm going to close it and not save the changes. What I also do there is then, if you look at the block attributes, I can actually go in the very imaginative called Batman command. So if I go and look at my drainage pits, here's all the attributes. Now what you'll see on that pipe, I display 2 attributes, that one display 1 attribute. I've got all of these attributes. So for example, what's the number, the street name that it's in, the type, the construction type, the lit type. So that's all of the values that you've got in here in the block definition. You can go and move these up and down, etc. So for the pit, what we're doing, if I look at, let's look at any of these. So if I go and look at my lit type to say that one is invisible, so I'm going to turn that on. There you can see then that would actually display that attribute that I have got on the map. So the whole idea is using these block attributes, you can totally control how it would work. You can also determine whether it should pick up the rotation of the entity. So it's not, do you want to display it horizontally, or do you want to pick up the rotation when you place this on the map? So yeah, you can then totally control. So attributes on your blocks can be quite a powerful mechanism of using that data. Okay, AutoCAD grips. So those are the little blue square control points when you select something. So you can stretch, move, copy, rotate, scale, mirror. So you can do quite a lot with that. So if I go in here, let me select entity. So here's the grips that we are working with. So there you'll have one in the middle. So if I then hover over it, it would go, okay, do you want to stretch that or you want to lengthen it? In this one, I can pick it up and that would move the whole entity for me. If I pick it up on that side, what it would do is it'll just pick up that one side. So you can then do the length or the rotate, etc. in there. So in here, what it will then also do is control to stretch between, do you want to lengthen it or stretch it? So stretch is going to move it, lengthen it. So what that is saying at the moment, it's saying the length of that current entity is 84.869 and the length would be 20.275. So if I say I want to lengthen it by 22, you can then go and work with that. So lengthen it by that amount so that it would then lengthen that for you. Now, if I select this polyline, you will get some different results in here. So if I go, you'll see now that one is a little flatter. So I can go and pick that up and that would then not move the entire entity, it would move that bit in there. Now I can also go and say add vertex, and so that would then go and do that. Or I can in here go and say convert that to an arc. And so fairly simple way of actually going modifying these entities that you can work with. I can also go and say remove that vertex, and it will do that for me. So yeah, grip editing can be quite powerful. Copy with array, so that is move, etc. So if you're doing stuff around roads, etc., it can be quite. So if I go and say there, I want to copy that with an array. So there, I can now go and pick that up and say, all right, well, yeah, a few more of those. Or you can go and say how many columns. So let's make that 9 columns, and it would then go and give me all of that. Or I can go and expand all of that. So there I've got an array of entities that is now selected. If I go and say explode that, now these are all the individual polylines, and once again if I explode that, now I go back to individual lines. So a fairly simple way of duplicating entities to get a lot more from that. Move, fairly simple. Rotate, just picking up entities around the base. That's that rotate. So if I want to go in here and I say, okay, well, I actually want to go and rotate that entity. So it'll prompt me, okay, which entity do you want to rotate? So just the one. I'm going to right click then. Then what's your base point? Now I'm going to turn my snap mode on there, and I'm going to use, here you can see all of those. So insertion is one of those that's turned on. So let's turn that on, and to say, okay, insertion point there, and snap to that one. So now it's picked up that rotation, and it will then display that for me. So quite easy to actually go and place the rotation programmatically. Scale, make things bigger and smaller, stretch, trim, quite a lot of tools that you can actually use object, using another object as a cutting edge, fillet and chamfer, radius, so snapping things together, extend. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. Now, one of the things then also within AutoCAD is your absolute and relative coordinates. Typically in the GIS sense, you use absolute coordinates. But if you're drawing things like a dash, etc., or something is being surveyed, you know that, well, okay, here's my absolute coordinate, but this boundary is now 20 meters, 40, 50 feet long, and what is the angle? And so you can pick up all of those things. So relative coordinates is the X and Y relative to the last points. It's always about the last point. Absolute coordinate is the absolute that you then are working with. So if it's in plane coordinates, etc., it is whatever those values would be. So absolute coordinates, you just work with the coordinates as well. Relative coordinates, you specify anything with the @ symbol. So if I am then drawing something, is to say, let's go and draw a line. So it's going to ask me what's your first point. I'm going to do that first point. Then what it will do is it'll now be in a mode to do, if I go and do @ what it will then do is to say, specify the next point. So I'm going to do, say the length there is 45, and 45, hit tab, and it will then do at my angle, and I'm going to do 90. So it will now draw that, so that 90 degrees was straight upwards, how you work with that. Now, the angles there, you can also go and modify. That's part of your units. So what's do you want to go precision? And in here, you can then go and say, so north is 90. So you can go and specify, you can go and say, what is your base angle? What 0 degrees is going east-west? So you can, but you can go and modify that. And you can in here also go and say, do you want to go clockwise or anti-clockwise? So you can go and specify those degree angles as well within your units. Okay, absolute and relative coordinates that you can work with. So fairly simple process, and if you then do the at, it will give you the offset that you are working with. Function keys, so F1, F2, so F2 is working with the command line, F1 will take you to help. So if I go and do F2, it will then give you your command history of everything that's happened in that command line, so you can easily get to that. The other type of things is then things like your snap mode. So there, if I do F3, will turn your snap on and off. So now there's two ways of working with snaps within AutoCAD. One is object snaps or running snaps. So if I've got it on and I say, let's go and draw, what you'll see there is it will then give you these little circles or icons. So let me go to my object snap settings. So I've got a number of these turned on. So if it's a square, it's endpoint, triangle is midpoint, lateral X is an intersection, an extension, insertion point of a block or text, perpendicular. Now, if I hit tab, it'll say, okay, that's now going to snap to the midpoint. That's going to snap to that endpoint. So if I now say, all right, yep, I'm happy with that. It went to the next endpoint there. If I'm happy with that, so now I can go and snap that, or I can snap to this midpoint. So that depends on what you're trying to do. But now the thing is, if I want to now go and draw, let's say a polyline, and I'm in here and I'm now working with a few things close. I want it close there, but it's now it's going to snap to that. Now I've got to turn my snap mode on to do that. Then I've got to turn my snap mode back on to be able to get to. So that would be then, okay, there's your perpendicular snap, for example, that you can work with, etc. So no, that's wrong. Let's undo that. The other one is then your these snaps. So you can actually then go and say, there I want to snap to endpoint. So go and pick that snap mode. And I want to snap to that endpoint. Or go and snap to an intersection or to an apparent intersection. So apparent intersection would be of this and that. So now you can see there, if those two lines were to intersect, that's where it would be. So you can actually then go to, you don't even have to extend these lines, it will do the calculation for you and then go to the apparent intersection. So depending on how you're drawing and what you're drawing, you can use running object snaps, or these snap modes sometimes is more efficient. So you'll see the experienced drafters use these type of snap modes a lot more often when you, especially things where you're drafting things close to each other. Yep, so the object snaps, midpoint, center, quadrant, intersection. So there's the Osnap toolbar that you can then working with. So yes, some examples of then quadrant that you are working with. Selecting layer colors, yeah, can easily work with. AutoCAD properties. Now, within properties is quite a powerful piece of technology. So if I go and look at anything, so what I will do is let me go to this polyline. So if I go and say in there, so here you can see these grayed out ones, so I can't modify that. But what I can do is go to these vertices. So if I say, well, that's actually that's not quite there, that should be a 9. I can modify it in there and it will modify the geometry for me. Now, the other thing is I can also step through my vertices. So if you've got something in a drawing, so you may have then duplicate vertices on top of each other, or you've got a line coming back on itself, And it can be quite difficult to find in this properties pane. Being able to step through the different vertices is quite handy. So if I've got the typical thing that might happen is, let's go and draw a polyline, and I go draw my polyline, and now I'm going to snap that together, and now I'm going to close it. So let's have a look at what's happening there. So let me draw. So if I've now got that one, so that's vertex 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So vertex 1 and vertex 5 is the same on top of each other, but there's only actually, there should only be 4. Now, if I close it, yeah, you would still have that. So ideally what you want to do if you're preparing data to be consumed then in a GIS, what you're going to do is not to say in there is have it closed, but now I can go and say, all right, I've picked up that, let's close it, yes, that on my vertices there 1 and 5 is actually duplicated. So I can now just go in here and on there go and say, that one won't let me now remove the vertex because it's closed. Okay, right, but so you can go and then know what's going on and go and modify the geometries with pedit. So, but yes, your properties pane is quite powerful in terms of modifying data. Your list command will give you information about data. So if I go and say, all right, align, let's list that, and it'll say there in which layer it is. That's in model space. There's a handle. That handle is the unique identifier of that entity within the drawing. It's unique in the drawing, but it can reoccur in another drawing. So if you insert it, so that's the X, the from and to point, the length, the angle, all of the deltas, etc. It's calculated for everything. If I go and do the list on my polyline, once again there I can go and see, then I can see my first and my last vertex is then exactly the same. So this examining coordinates to see what is going on can be quite, especially now have I got duplicate vertices on top of each other or stuff going back on itself or so on, you can actually go and see what's going on within these geometries. So that's a handy one to use a lot. Model space and paper space, I'm not going to go into too much detail about. So paper space is about printing stuff, model space is about drafting stuff. So that's then what you would have there is to say, okay, on a layout, you then have, this is how it's going to be printed, and then you've got viewports in there, so you can then go and specify different viewports, so you can actually then say, this is my data in the paper space, in model space, but now go and put in 4 different viewports and give you different views of the same data, and you can lock the scale or the angle so you can rotate it and do all the various things around map production within your paper space. So that's quite a big topic all on its own as well. Quick select and select similar is 2 quite important tools that you can work with. So let me go back to my model space. So there's 2 things I'm going to do. So if I select something, so let's go and there's a drainage pipe one. So if I go and say, let's go and do select similar, what that will now do is to say, look at the layer, the color, the block name, go and then select the stuff that's similar to me. So that will now select all the blocks with these attributes. Now here you can say all of their position changes, and yes, all the attributes in there's the number and the bit number, all of the stuff varies, and you can then see what's the same as well, that you've got to do that. But now let's say I want to get the line work as well as the blocks associated with it. So if I do then Q select or quick select, what that will then do is give me a dialog and say, okay, in this entire drawing, so go and select the polylines, the lines, or multiples, where the layer equals that, and include that in a new selection set. So now what it's done, it's selected the blocks as well as the line work that we are working with. The other thing that I could also do is with toSelect is then to say, go and select all the polylines where the layer is that. All right, there's none of those. There's polylines in the drawing. Go and select all the lines where the layer equals that. So that will then select all the line work for me. So you can then differentiate between object types to work within your selection. So there's quite a few things, the same with names and block names and so on, that I can select. Depending on the type of thing that you choose, you may have different options available for you. Distance calculations that you can work with. So the same thing then is if I say, okay, what's the distance? Now, the snap modes can then also be active. So if I say, all right, what's the distance from that point to that point? So that's 0.914. And that will then display what's the distance, the angle in the X plane, the angle from Y plane, the delta X. So it will give you all of that information that you can work with. You can also then do collective distance. So if you carry on, so it will then specify that for you to next point, to next point, to next point, to daisy chain, all of that. Polyline we have covered. Now, one of the things then on that, remember with the properties, you can actually go and specify different widths on there. So what you'll see now, I can go and say, give it a global width. So if I give that a global width of 10, now you can see, all right, there's now my global width. Now, a little bit of a thing between the arc and the line, how that is, and all the segments would be. But what I can also do is let me make my global width that. So in my start segment, let's make that 2, and the end segment, let's make that 5. So now you can see here I've got a line that is going there, and let's go to our next segment. That one is 4 and 3. So you can then go and for each segment specify different widths, etc. But then programmatically you may also end up, so for stylization purposes where you've got a footpath or a road or etc. that's getting wider, you can go and do all of these type of things for display purposes. But for data preparation purposes, it may cause you issues down the line. So just be careful how you use these separate segment widths, etc. Global width is better. Now, just then one other thing in the command line, you can, in terms of line weight and width, do you want to display that or not? So you can determine how you want to handle that. Polyline edit using the grips. We've had a look at that. The cycle, closed polyline. So do not support multi-polygons or polygons with holes. So what we will do is we'll actually go and look at that. So we've looked at the AutoCAD polygons with that. So multi-polygon, if I then look at things like road segments, or I look at garden, public open space, so you've got garden beds, etc. How do we handle that polygons with boundary? So here I've got 2 polygon objects. Each one I've got 3 boundaries. So here I've got, that's a multi-polygon, and that's a polygon with a hole. And here then I've got a polygon with a hole with another polygon inside. So let's say this is a grass area, then I've got a garden bed, and I've got another piece of grass on the inside of that. And so that is then how we can determine the information in there. So how do we do that? Now this is then as part of AutoCAD map. So let me go, and I've got this polygon that I've drawn. I'm going to draw another polygon there, and let's go and close that one. And I'm going to then draw another one on the inside here. Close that one. So let me go and say, so on your commands, you've got then that's the polygon. That's part of the CAD map. So in there, I can say convert polylines to polygons, or the full settings, or edit polygon, or create one. So create will prompt you to go and draw it, or I can convert that polyline to in polygon. So what we'll do, let's start off with this one. All right, so now if I go and look at, let me go to the create one. Now what it will do is I'm going to do there, let's go and select that object. All right, so that I've selected that one. All right, so now it's converted it. Now it automatically generated a fill. You totally on control how you want to do that. So I'm going to go out there. Now, one of those things that you can see there is, do you want to edit the polygon full settings? So the full settings there is, do you want to use a predefined one? And I'll make that as an angle. And remember, we spoke about regen. Okay, it's a bit too big still. Okay, let me do edges only, regen that. Okay, so here I've got this in polygon. Let me go and then draw that one again. Remember that multi-snap, it would create an illegal one. I want to edit this one. So let's go and select this one. Now I want to go and add a segment to that. So let's go and add a new boundary to that. And I'll also go and add a new boundary again. And let's see what's going on there. Now I can see there, that is an M polygon. Okay, so here's there you can see my M polygon, and that is then the hole. So that is then one M polygon that I've got, and that's then a polygon with a hole. So I can now go and draw as something else in there. So if I've got, let's say, a graph, it's a roundabout or whatever, I can then inscribe that the other data type that I've got there. So this is in AutoCAD how you can do multi-polygons. Now, normally what people would do for presentation purposes, what they would do is they have a lightweight polyline, and then they would do a fill in it. And the fill would then look like it is a multi-polygon, because that's, you can do that. Fills would do that, but you cannot take a fill and then add attributes to it and then use that to convert to GIS data. So your hatches doesn't really work as a data manipulation mechanism. That's where multi-polygons come in quite handy. So yeah, quite an important one there. Joining lines, that you can easily go and use that. So you can take separate lines and then go and join it. So if I've got the multiples, you can join, change it, etc. Split single lines, so you can actually split lines into different segments that you can easily work with. Same splitting double lines, etc. Splaying of corners, breaking of boundary lines, extending by distance, weeding. Now, okay, one of the things that we'll look at is your options dialog. So we'll go and look at that. So in terms of your user interface, your options dialog manage how the whole AutoCAD fits together. So typically in here, we've had a look at that, your color theme in the background and so on that you can work with. The files in here is quite important. So this is then your support file search path will handle where it's going to get its fonts and its help and the express tools, and in this case, so this is map 3D, all the feature data objects and the map projections, where is it going to get that. Your working support file search path, that's a sort of a secondary mechanism to that, maybe the support. The other important one is if you do any list files or anything like that, there have been some viruses written for AutoCAD, and these trusted locations, you can go and specify that these files, that's where it's going to place these files. So for example, either program files or program files 86. So you can go and add your own path then, so that it won't give you an error message to say this is an unsupported or an insecure path. So you can go and add that into your trusted locations. Yeah, automatic file save location. So there's a few things that you can go and specify in there. Open and save. Then what's the area that you're going to work with? Do you want to do automatic save? So that can be quite a lifesaver. So create a backup copy. So it will do auto saves for you in the background. You can do digital signatures. So then we can actually then provide a digital signature. Now what that is it will apply a drawing and the digital signature will be revoked if the drawing is edited. So you can then say this drawing is as it was delivered to my specific customer. Plot and publish settings, that's a whole topic on itself. Here's some things around your graphic settings, your graphics performance, etc. Your notification, security options, how you can do that. So once again there, your trusted locations, where's that and do you want to exclude it? So some security settings. Your user preferencing, do you want to do double click editing or single click? Your right click customization, you can go and modify that. It's time sensitive, so there's quite a few things that you can work with there. Your drafting settings, the marker and the magnet in the AutoSnap tooltip, the aperture toolbox, so there's quite a few things there that you can modify. Your selection works, so we've looked at the shift to add to the selection, so you can turn off grips completely. You can go and set your own colors for the grips if you so wish. And then you've got these profiles, so you can go and set up your profile. So if you've got a profile for a specific customer project, you can then go and set up different profiles that you can easily switch in between. So in here, if I go and say, here I've got a Mansa's profile with different icons, etc. Or I can go to my standard AutoCAD map profile. So a very easy way to then go into your different tools, etc., so that you can set up with different profiles and have totally different views of all the data. Thank you very much for attending. That's my email address, or go and look at openspatial.com or asconstructed.com, and there's ways that you can contact us there. So thank you very much for your attendance and see you at the next webinar.